Well, my dog's high value treat, and please don't shudder in horror, is a Cheeto. That's how I trained him in agility. But he doesn't get Cheetos
Oh my
any other
gosh,
time. I know it was the only
that's
thing I
funny.
could think of
That's
when I was
funny. Oh my
training
gosh.
him. They're like, find something that he will just absolutely kill for, and I'm like, well, he will kill for Cheetos. Welcome to Mouthful. I'm Lori Lynn Barker. Mouthful is a podcast about food, culture, and the makers in the world. On this episode, I talk with Joel Silverman, celebrity dog trainer. Mouthful is sponsored by ccfdocumentation.com. Let CCF develop your e-learning or instructional video training. From training assessment to course creation and LMS administration, CCF is your one-stop training resource. Check them out at ccfdocumentation.com. On this episode, I get to talk about my other favorite thing in life, and that is dogs. I love dogs. I love my dogs. I didn't grow up really as a dog person. I got my first dog and I was hooked when I was like in my 20s, I think. In my lifetime, I've had Dobermans, Wiener dogs, Schipperkes, Basenjis, Labs, and now I am owned by two dogs, Frankie and Brody. Brody is my 100-pound shepherd cattle dog mix. It took me a while to figure out what kind of shepherd, and thanks to the dog show on Thanksgiving, I now know that he is mixed with Boucheron. Boucheron's breed trait is that they have double dew claws, which is a breed standard. And what I got from this dog show, the dew claws are used to climb trees. Thank goodness Brody has never climbed a tree. If you look at a picture of a Boucheron, Brody looks exactly like a Boucheron with cattle dog markings. The reason I tell you this is because I really like to say the word Boucheron. Brody's from the Boulder Humane Society. I'm a strong supporter of adopting animals. And I also have Frankie. Frankie's my other boyfriend. Frankie's an Aussie mix. The vet told me once that he might be mixed with Dingo. So we're really trying to figure out where the Dingo came from because he's from northern Colorado. So we're not really sure what he is. He's just Frankie. And when you meet Frankie, you go, yeah, he's a Frankie. You will hear me talk about them in the interview. So be prepared. You're going to hear more about Frankie and Brody. In this episode, I talk with Joel Silverman, celebrity dog trainer. He is like most dog lovers and can talk dogs forever. In this interview, he also gives some great training suggestions. So here we go. Here's Joel Silverman.
Well, my name is Joel Silverman, and I'm a celebrity dog trainer. I had a show on, a lot of people know me because I had a show on Animal Planet called Good Dog You. It aired from 1999 to 2009. It aired for about 10 years. It was one of the very first shows on Animal Planet, dog training shows. And then more recently, there was a TV series I did called What Color's Your Dog? It was a syndicated show, and it aired in about 70% of the country. And then most people will recognize me as I was featured in a Chase Bank commercial with my dog Duchess with a bunch of dogs rolling over and stuff, and as well about 4 years ago in 2015. So, but, I grew up as a Hollywood animal trainer, training animals for movies, TV shows, and commercials. That's kind of how I started. And prior to that, I grew up doing shows in theme parks and all the theme parks in Southern California, with the exception of Disneyland. And I was a marine mammal trainer, a killer whale trainer at SeaWorld. I did the animal show at Universal Studios. I did a dolphin show at Magic Mountain. I put a dolphin show in at, Knott's Berry Farm and things. So I kind of grew up in live shows. But, I grew up as a movie animal trainer, and that's kind of what got me into, working in Hollywood and eventually doing stuff on camera. So I kind of work on both sides of the camera. And then just recently I just launched, I wrote 4 books. I'm working on my 5th book right now. And just launched these dog trainer certification courses about 3 years ago where I certify people to be dog trainers. I fly to primarily dog daycare businesses across the nation, and I help them implement dog training in their business and with my own certification. It's a 4-day hands-on course. So that's me in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. How did you become an animal trainer? Did you always have a love of animals? What was the journey to become an official dog trainer?
The way it started, honestly, was my parents. I grew up in Southern California, and my parents, they grew up in the L.A. area, and my parents would always take me to San Diego on vacation every summer as a kid. And so, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, I was just fascinated by the trainers watching, train the marine mammals, especially the killer whales. I was just fascinated. I was just fascinated with the killer whales. And eventually, when I was 16 years old, I wanted to, be a little closer, and maybe this is something I kind of wanted to do. And so I actually got hired during the summers to be a park operations person. I picked up trash, and but I worked at the stadium, this Shamu Stadium, and everything. And I bugged the trainer or the director of training. I bugged him over and over again for like 2 years. And eventually, they hired me as a trainer. And I started off with birds, and eventually sea lions, and eventually killer whales, dolphins and killer whales, and primarily killer whales. I spent most of my life, most of my time in the water with them. And back then it was all water work, a lot of water work. So you spent, most of your day in the water with the whales and things. And but I trained the whales to do a lot of, to shoot me out of the water and do all these different behaviors and things like that. And that's how I started. But I grew up in L.A. initially, and I was trying to do the show at Universal Studios before I went to work for SeaWorld. So I left SeaWorld and went back to doing the show at Universal Studios. It was a contracted show, called the Animal Actors Stage. And that's what got me into training birds, dogs, and cats. And because we did that, in the show. And then the guy that I worked for, Ray Berwick, he also did a lot of, not along with contracting the shows, we also did a lot of movie work as well. And that's kind of what got me into working on the set. So that's kind of how I started. And, I don't, my family, my parents were teachers, and my dad was a coach. So they weren't in the animal training business. A lot of people always ask me if my parents were in the dog training business or whatever. And I'm like, the farthest thing from that, my dad never was comfortable around animals, So.
Well, and I find the people who are really into animals come from a family that weren't really into animals.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
You hear people like, I was only allowed one dog, and then when they become an adult, they have 10 because we want more than one.
Exactly. No, but you're absolutely correct. I've seen that a lot.
Tell me about your books.
Well, the very first book I wrote was What Color Is Your Dog? And it basically, what it simply means is your dog is given a color based on personality. I got really tired of dog trainers, and I still am tired of it, when dog trainers are trying to force a technique on people and, one style. And you're just in a fantasy world if you think for some reason one style is going to work for every single dog. People are different, and so are dogs. And you really need to train your dog based on the personality of the dog that it's giving you at the time that you're working with the dog, because a personality can change based upon the environment that the dog is in. And so a good example is we say, what color is your dog? Your dog is one of 5 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, or blue. And the reds and orange dogs are the warmer color dogs. The blues and greens are the cooler color dogs. And then in the center, we have a yellow dog. And some dogs are naturally yellow. Some dogs, they're mellow, we call mellow yellow, and some dogs are mellow yellow because they had a really, really good owner or trainer, and they became a yellow dog. They were orange or green, they became yellow. So on one end of the spectrum, we have a red dog, which is going to be really, really super high strung, just going crazy, and then we have an orange dog. Moving towards the center, we have an orange dog, which is going to be high strung, not the degree of a red, but it's very, very high strung, very, very reactive. And a lot of dogs in animal shelters, probably 35 to 40%, are orange dogs. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the spectrum, of course, we have a yellow dog. And then moving out on the other direction, we have a green dog, which is going to be timid. They're going to be apprehensive. They're going to be cautious. And again, 35 to probably 40% of dogs are green dogs. And then we have a blue dog, which is, on the other, which is further out, which is really, really afraid of everything. You walk into a house, he runs under a bed, probably had some really bad, training, bad care, poor training for some years. And so the blues and greens are the cooler color dogs, and the oranges and the reds are the warmer color dogs. And my whole philosophy is you would never train a cooler color dog like a warmer color dog. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way you move, the way you reward, the tools you use, everything you do is like night and day. And the cool thing about it is your dog can change colors. And, the closer your dog is to the center of the spectrum, the easier your dog is to train. So a yellow dog is going to be easier. A blue dog or a red dog is going to be a lot more challenging. But a blue dog, over the course of time, if things are done the right way, can become green. And a green dog, if things are done the right way, can become yellow. And a red dog can become orange, and an orange dog can become yellow. And, will a red Jack Russell ever be a yellow dog? Probably not. But it will probably be an orange dog if things are done the right way, if you socialize the animal, train the animal, and things like that. So, The cooler color dogs need motivation, high value treats. They need that type of thing. The orange color dog, the warmer color dogs, they don't need motivation. They're already reactive. They're already excited. They need to be calmed down, and that's really the difference in training the cooler color dogs and the warmer color dogs.
I have a personal question. I have a dog that I rescued as a puppy, and he has always been, for lack of a better word, skittish. Now, I've taken him to obedience training. I've done agility training with him. I make sure I socialize him, but he is still skittish, and he's 12. Is there anything is he always going to be skittish for the rest of his life, or is that something I can actually work on still?
I don't know. I don't, because I don't know the dog, and stuff. But my thing is that I don't know really what you did. Like, even though somebody did agility, and though somebody has done, okay, they've socialized the animal to agility, they've done these different things. I don't know that necessarily is. I mean, it's good to get your dog out, but is that what's going to help your dog from being skittish or, skittish from people? So my question is, like, I'm working on my 5th book right now called Rituals. And Rituals is it's my best book so far, and I'm about halfway done with it. It's going to be done next month. And, what we talk about with Rituals is understanding, and I'm really working on this last chapter where we're showing people how to deal with some of these issues that dogs have, these rituals that they create. That are created over the course of time. And your dog has created these certain rituals over the course of time, and whether it was unintentionally rewarded by you or other people, that's what gets a dog. That's how rituals are created.
Right.
They're created because the dog is able to play out these actions and manifest, out these things that happen. And so, my question is to a lot of people, and is that is your dog skittish? Is it around people? Is it around moving objects? Is it, we talk about people, places, and things. Well, are there certain places the dog gets, skittish? Is it certain people? Is it all people? Is it moving objects? Is it something with wheels? Is it something that makes noise? That's really the question you want to ask people is, what is it where your dog is skittish? And if somebody was to say, it's everything. It's all of those things, all of the above. Well, then what we need to do is we need to find a way to work the dog and get the dog conditioned to working around all of the above. And that starts off with a style of training which is called redirection. And redirection simply means we redirect the dog using a high-value treat, something that the dog really, really that never gets in a training session, never gets in at times, but the dog loves it and goes crazy over it. And if I can, a good example is this dog is afraid of me. And if I, was your neighbor, and every time I came to the front door, dog would just be like, okay, bail, doesn't want to come to the front door because he's afraid of me. Well, my attitude is the first thing I would do is say, all right, let's get to a neutral place. Let's just, get to a place maybe in the front yard where you've got the dog on a leash, and the dog will take a treat from me. And yeah, the dog will take a treat from me in the front yard, barely take a treat from me, but it will still take a treat from me. And if we just, give the dog a piece of chicken or a piece of steak or something like that, a couple pieces, and I give, a couple different pieces, over the course of 10 seconds or 15 seconds, and I bail. I'm gone. Mm-hmm. And we do the same thing the next day in the same place, in the front yard. And we do the same thing again the next day. So we start on a Monday, and by Wednesday, all of a sudden by Wednesday, we've done this, a couple times now, and on Wednesday at 5 o'clock, here I am. All of a sudden the dog is like, well, I'm not, it's not the guy that he's afraid of necessarily. I'm more interested in the guy that gave me a piece of steak.
Right.
And that's what's called redirection. And that's redirection. And that's how redirection works. It really, really works awesome because you're letting the dog take it upon himself to figure out, it's like, whoa, it's not about that. Now, the only difference is people need to make sure that the high-value treat you're using is greater than his fear of whatever it is, the person, place, or thing. And if you can do that, well, then now what ends up happening is you've got you've got a place to start. With dog training, you need a place to start. Will he take the treat from the person? Absolutely. Okay, let's just get him to come running in and take the person. I'm not going to move at all. I'm going to be a prop. You're going to bring the dog and every day at 5 o'clock. Now you're going to take the dog out of the house. He's going to come before you know. He's going to come running over to me. Hey, how you doing? I'm not moving. I'm not looking at you. I'm not going to pet you, but I'm just going to be a prop and give you this treat. Dogs eventually put his feet up on me, and because he has a trust in me, knowing the fact that I'm not going to do anything. Well, now what ends up happening is he starts walking out. Now the next step would maybe be me walking away a little bit, and I call him good boy, and calling him, I walk away, and then Alex takes a treat. Now all of a sudden you and I start taking a walk, and I start walking, giving him a treat as we're walking, taking a walk, and now there's that movement, because when there's that movement, there's a change there. You're asking the dog to get used to something else. So now we're moving around a little bit. So it's just one
thing at a time.
Dog training is one step at a time, and the best animal trainers are the ones that can break it down into steps and say to themselves, okay, I'm going to start with step 1, and eventually I know I want to get to step 10 finished, but how do I get to those steps? And how do I make it as easy as possible on the dog and not move too fast? Take it really, really super slow. But that's what dog training is about.
And is the treat that you give the dog only specific to the action that you're doing?
The treat, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I'll use treats like I use Bil-Jac treats. People know I feed Bil-Jac food.
I use them too.
I've been using treats. Yeah, that's great. I've been using treats for years, and so I'll use the treat, for example, in most of my training sessions. But let's say I'm using. I've got a dog, and I really, really want to. Just this one situation, he's a little afraid of these people. If I want to use something a little different, I might use a real piece of chicken or a real piece of steak or a real piece of cheese, just to make things a little bit different for the dog. Or it might be actually a Bil-Jac treat. There are a lot of different treats are out there, but there might be a Bil-Jac treat that he just goes crazy over. So I'm not going to give him that treat that he goes crazy over, that Bil-Jac treat, in every session, but I will give it to him in that session where I want to use redirection. Okay, and then the other Bil-Jac treats that he likes but just doesn't go nuts over, I'll use those in the other sessions. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It definitely does.
That's the idea, and that's really what the idea is. Yeah.
Well, I know with my dogs, one of them is on medicine, and I've trained all of them to have this medicine treat. That's what we call it in the morning. So in case they have to start taking medicine, it's already ingrained in them. But one of my dogs has to take medicine, and he only gets a certain style of treat with his medicine. He doesn't get it any other time, and it's a high value treat.
No, that's exactly it. No, that is exactly it, because you're taking the high value treat and you're making it a special occasion. If they get it all the time, it's no longer a high value treat. It's no longer special,
Right.
And that's the other thing we teach people. Is I'm in Reno. I live in Reno, Nevada, but I'm in Oregon right now teaching my course. I'm actually teaching. I'm on a break right now, but I've got students that are going through my certification course at a dog daycare business, But we just kind of went through that today, just explaining to them a little bit about that today, about the fact that how you need to make, if you're using it as a high-value treatment or using it as in a session, a certain session, make the session special.
Right.
Make the treat special. You got to make it special. And like I say, whether you're giving medication or whatever it is, exactly what you just did,
Well, my dog's high-value treat, and please don't shudder in horror, is a Cheeto. That's how I trained him in agility. But he doesn't get Cheetos any other time. I know. It was the only thing I could think of when I was training him. They're like, find something that he will just absolutely kill for. And I'm like, well, he will kill for Cheetos. So,
that's funny.
But he only gets them in certain times. So that's how that is.
But yeah, that's interesting. But anyways, there are a lot of Bil-Jac treats that are out there, and Bil-Jac originally, when they came out, the people that know me know that I've been feeding the food since like 1990. I met Bob Kelly, the president, in 1990, and on the set of Empty Nest, this TV series I did a video, and
you were responsible for the dog, correct? That you trained the dog that was on Empty Nest.
I trained Dreyfus on the TV series Empty Nest. Yeah, I was the trainer of the dog on the show for like 4 years. And so, but we had done a video, and then, Bob had explained to me about the food and really how it worked, how it was, made. And it was really surprising to me. I didn't realize, I thought all foods were done the same way. And I didn't realize that they actually, the food was slow cooked in small batches. And he explained to me the reason they did it was because they can cook it at lower temperatures. And the lower the temperature, the less chance you have of damaging the proteins. And so that's why the food is really probably the freshest of all the foods, because the fact that they could cook at low temperatures. And so I always tell people that all the time, and go to their website and they can read about it and kind of how it's done, the process. But what I was going to say was, back in the day, they had, one food and, one treat, like everybody else. And now, of course, they've got a lot of different types of foods, and they've got a lot of different treats. So every dog is different. They all like have different flavors and things, and they do taste the flavors. And there's many, many different types of treats that I use. And I always tell people that I like the little jacks because they're smaller, and I always like to give small amounts of treats to the dogs myself because I'm doing multiple sessions. But they've got other Bil-Jac treats that come in these they look like little milk cartons, and they're pretty good size. So, but it's really based upon what people want to do, whatever, as far as their choice goes.
Well, I know as far as I can remember, as back as I can remember, is that people, like when I go see dog shows or train dogs, they've always used Bil-Jac treats. And I just always automatically assumed that Bil-Jac treats were training treats. So it's been around my life for quite a while.
No, they have, but but movie animal trainers, I know a lot of people in Southern California that they still feed those Bil-Jac treats.
Mm-hmm. Can you share what the 5 things people should know when training their dog?
Oh, the 5 things. First of all, the bond and the relationship is everything. Successful dog trainers will tell you when your dog wants to please you, wants to make you happy. I mean, training is 100% easier. So you really, really want to build the bond, get the relationship, get the dog, where he wants to please you and make you happy. The second thing I would tell people is you need to train every dog differently based on, the dog's individual personality. And every single dog is different. And we talked about this before. If you have a dog who's more high-strung, your mannerisms, everything you need to do is be a lot more, calm and a lot more laid back. If your dog needs motivation, if your dog is timid and shy and needs that motivation, you're going to show a different personality. You need to bring out the dog's, attitude, bring out the dog's, personality. Second, the third thing I would tell people is, before you bring your dog out in a training session, have a goal of what you want to accomplish in the training session. And when you achieve the goal in the session, really, really super important to make sure that you plan things out. If you don't know what you're doing, if you have no idea what you're doing, most intelligent dogs are going to know that. And you send that message to your dog that you don't know what you're doing. So what I tell people is, again, number 3, plan the session out, have an idea of what you want to do. The 4th thing I would tell people is when you end the session, end every session on a positive note. Leave the dog wanting more and end the session on a positive note. Really, really super important. And the last one probably would be, as far as the sessions go, short sessions, 2-minute sessions.
Right.
Really, really super short. Again, 2-minute sessions, you're leaving the dog wanting more. If you bring the dog out for the very first session and that dog is working, 15 minutes and he's just fried and he's just like, oh my gosh, he's not going to want to come back out again. He's not going to want to come back out.
Right.
But if it's a 2 or 3 minute session and you put him away and he's like, well, then he's like, that's it? That's all?
Mm-hmm.
That's all. So he's chomping at the bit to come back out. So those are really, kind of my five tips that I give people.
Well, I actually have a dog that is uber smart, and everyone thinks that their dog is uber smart. And my husband really didn't realize how smart the dog was, and we've had him for 10 years or something. And I always work with him on a new trick at least once a week. So he's got quite the library of tricks. And one day, Art, my husband, asked Frankie to do something, and Frankie did it. And he's like, "How did he do that?" And I said, "Well, I worked with him." He goes, "Let's see if we can do a new trick." And so we did a new trick, and within 2 minutes, the dog had a new trick, for lack of a better word. He's like, "This is the smartest dog I've ever seen." And I'm like, it's scary how smart this dog is. He's an Aussie, Australian Shepherd. We want to say cattle dog mix or blue heeler or something.
Yeah, you've got these smart breeds. Those are smart breeds. Right,
and if he had thumbs,
and
he'd steal the car. That's what I always say.
Well, that's the thing I tell people all the time in my courses. It's all the individual dog. I said, I teach my students that, we've got, 6 phases in the sit behavior. There are always 6 phases. Now, we're going to start with phase 1. You may be on phase 1, you're 3 or 4 sessions with a dog that's really out of control because it's just standing there on all fours, having the dog take the treat. That's phase 1, But that border collie or your dog, you might be in phase 1 for 30 10 seconds or whatever.
Right.
Like, okay, now I'm gonna do phase 2. Oh, phase 2, I'm phase 2, I'm there for 10 seconds. Phase 3, I mean, you might have it finished, have literally the behavior finished in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So we always want to make sure we lower the bar, keep the bar low, so you don't know exactly what you want to, you want to keep the bar low. So, in the event there is dogs who take some time to learn, you're working at that dog's speed. And if they give you more, great.
And tell people how they can get a hold of you and get more information about your books and your certification and all that.
Yeah, my certification courses, go to joelsilverman.net, and we fly out to dog daycare businesses across the nation. So anybody that's got and on top of that, anybody else that wants to take the course while we're doing it is more than welcome to. So they can go to my website and check out my schedule. And then also it's joelsilverman.net, and then also we've got my alternative training collar that I patented. We've got my books and my DVDs as well. We have these online videos where people can actually sign up for membership. We have that too. But most importantly, go to Bil-Jac.com for information on Bil-Jac, on the treats, the food, really how the food is made, and all the independent studies that they have had done from. These are people that are independent people that will talk to you about the food.
And it also has a link to they also have your videos up there.
Yes, there's a ton of videos on there. Yep, they are.
Thank you to Joel Silverman. For more information, please visit his website, joelsilverman.net, and you can see some of his training videos on Bil-Jac.com. Mouthful is sponsored by CCF Documentation. Whether you want to train your employees or teach your customers how to properly use your equipment or product, or you are wanting to market your expertise to the world, online training is fast becoming one of the most sought-after forms of training in the business world today. Providing flexibility as well as consistency, e-learning will get your new hires or customers trained faster and with less resources. At CCF Documentation, we provide customized e-learning solutions geared to proactively and efficiently train your employees or customers with measurable training outcomes. To maximize your training effectiveness, contact CCF Documentation at ccfdocumentation.com. If you have questions or you'd like to be a guest or just want to talk dogs, please contact me at mouthfulthepodcast@gmail.com. I'm also on all social media platforms. And of course, you can find me under my name on all those platforms, Lori Lynn Barker. And that's spelled LORILYNNBARKER. With Mouthful, I'm Lori Lynn Barker. Stay fresh, cheese bags.